It's purple. It's purple, right? It's purple. What? What purple? What do you mean? What? What do you mean? This is the answer to your question. This is the answer to your question. I'm answering your question. I didn't ask you any questions. What? What do you mean? Anyways, hey guys, what's up? It's the Ghost Detective here, investigating your favorite TV shows, and today I'm going to do a review on Dark Season 2. The German horror TV show about time traveling and people disappearing because of religious reasons, and it's created by Baron Bo Odar. So it's going to be a pain in the ass for me to try to recap what happened because it's just so friggin' complicated, but here I go. In the German town of Finden, we have a few families living there. The Kahnwald, the Nielsen, and the Tiedemann, and also the friggin'... there's another, the Doppler family are some of the most important families living in Finden now. One day in 2019, Mikkel Nielsen, son of Ulrich Nielsen, disappeared, and later it turns out that Mikkel woke up in 1986 and dated Hannah Kahnwald and is father to Jonas Kahnwald in 2019, who is our main character. Jonas Kahnwald has also dated Martha Nielsen back in 2019, who is actually his own aunt. And since Ulrich had an affair with Hannah, he had an affair with his own daughter-in-law. Gross, I know. Anyways, we have Martha Nielsen, who's dating Bartosz Tiedemann in 2019, and Bartosz's mom, Regina, has cancer, and his dad, Alexander, is the CEO of a nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, Magnus Nielsen is dating Franziska Doppler, daughter of Charlotte Doppler, the cop, and Peter Doppler, the psychiatrist. And the sister of Franziska is Elisabeth Doppler, who is a mute and deaf, I think. More and more people started disappearing. Eric Obendorf disappeared first, though it doesn't seem like he's an important character at all. After Mikkel, we have another kid. Jonas decided to investigate, and a hooded stranger secretly helped him and guided him to a portal inside of a cave that leads to a time travel portal that goes to 1986 and 1953. The hooded stranger was actually Jonas all the time, but just older. And both Jonas and Helga also know that a priest by the name of Noah is evil. Helga is Helga Doppler, Peter Doppler's dad, and he had worked with Noah in 1986, time traveling around and kidnapping kids from all over the time. He regrets it in the year 2019, so he attempted to go back to 1986 and convince his younger self to stop following Noah, and he died. He failed. Ulrich did some investigation, and he realized that his brother, Mads, disappeared 33 years ago in 1986. His body showed up in 2019, so Ulrich entered the cave portal and ended up in 1953. He found young Helga in 1953 and tried to kill him, but ended up in a jail cell. In the meantime, Noah has been going to 2019 and secretly working with Bartosz. In 2019, Jonas, aka the current time Jonas, walked through a wormhole of sorts and ended up in 2052, which is the future, the Zukunft. And it's a wasteland. It's a nuclear wasteland. The future, it's dead. Now we have episode 1, Anfang, or Anfänge, and Enden, or beginnings and endings, and it's a pretty slow-paced opening. I don't know why, but instead of continue answering questions, the show is making it even more confusing as we have an 8-month time jump between the end of season 1 and this episode. Current Jonas is stuck in nuclear wasteland 2052, and Elisabeth Doppler somehow became the leader of the survivors in 2052. Future Jonas in turn visited his own mom Hannah back in 2020 and told her everything basically. A wholesome moment, but I don't know what's his plan. Also in 2020, we see Bartosz still working with Noah, Magnus still doesn't know what's going on with Franziska, and Katarina Nielsen, aka Ulrich's wife, and Mikkel, Martha, Magnus's mom, and Jonas's grandma entered the cave and tried to find answers. So yes, Ulrich was probably in jail in 1953 for 8 months already. So Yikes. Charlotte Doppler has a new investigation partner called Clausen, and Alexander Tiedemann is closing the nuclear power plant while Regina is suffering with cancer. Noah is working for this man named Adam, who has a burnt pizza face, and Noah is from 1921 apparently. And it's also predicted that there would be an apocalypse in 6 days, so I guess there's that to look forward to, but overall this episode just isn't much. Then we have episode 2, Dunkle Materie, and there's a lot of stuff that happened. There's so much to digest, so much to analyze. This feels like a Christopher Nolan movie, but super condensed. It's very complicated. So let me start chronologically with 1987, with old 2020 Claudia meeting 1987 Claudia, meeting her younger self. I assume that 2020 Claudia is exactly the reason why 1987 Claudia learned about time travel, and that's also a bootstrap paradox itself. How did Claudia learn about time travel in the first place? From herself? Then who did she learn time travel from? From herself? It just repeats itself over and over and over again. It's a bootstrap paradox. We also have scenes in 1987 with Mikkel running into Katharina, aka his mom, but younger, of course, and then running into Noah. We see 1987 Egon Tiedemann, Claudia's dad, speak to Helge, Peter's dad, and there's also a huge revelation regarding Ulrich, which really shocked me. I really wish that this isn't the end for Ulrich's character, because he had a lot of character development in season 1. Then in 2020, Charlotte and a new police guy, Clausen, continued to investigate. The new guy seemed very suspicious, and they talked to Regina Tiedemann, aka Egon's granddaughter and Claudia's daughter, and Regina revealed that a stranger, aka 2052 Jonas, visited her hotel, but then revealed that he's Jonas. But Charlotte is beginning to piece the puzzle together, and at the same time, 2053 Jonas showed Hannah, aka his mom, the time machine. Which is insane. The cat's out of the bag. Time travel is real, and people are beginning to know that, and things are beginning to be way more messier. What's more insane is 2053, when current Jonas tried to go into the abandoned nuclear power plant, aka the Death Zone, and he found a strange wobbling chunk of dark matter and wanted to go through. He almost got killed under Elizabeth Doppler's orders. Charlotte's daughter, Elizabeth. And I'm just really excited to see what happens next. What will 2053 Jonas and 2020 Hannah do now? What will 2020 Jonas do now? How's 2020 Ulrich in 1954? I want to know. Also, the casting of the characters are insanely good. The old versions and the young versions of characters are actually look similar. It's actually amazing. Over to episode 3, Gespenster, or ghosts. And the episode is actually really easy to follow because we're only focused on 2 time periods as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5. And the 2 time periods are 1954 and 1987. And almost all the scenes involve either Claudia or Egon because they both exist in 1954 and 87. And also old Claudia from 2020 also stayed in 1954. And on this episode, we basically relearn about the whole time travel thing from the perspectives of Claudia and Egon, with Claudia Tiedemann visiting H.G. Tannhaus, the clockmaker, and then using his time machine to go to the future of 2020. And then we have Egon Tiedemann in 1954 trying to question Ulrich, but failed. Then in 1987, continued the investigation again, and realized something crazy was going on. It's just a little disappointing that we don't see what the future Jonas and his mom is doing, what present-day Jonas is doing, and what Katharina is doing after she went to the cave, but overall, pretty solid episode. Moving over, we have episode 4, Die Reisenden, or The Travelers, and it's easily my favorite episode of Dark so far. The entire series so far, yes. Oh my god! This series starts off very slow, but pretty much every scene in this episode alone is super interesting and takes a step forward into the plot. Again, let's get over this chronologically. We head over to 1921. It's really cool to see that instead of 3 time periods in season 1, now we have 5. 21, 54, 87, 2020, and 2053. This TV show takes place over 132 years. Anyways, Jonas woke up in 1921, and wow, the sets are actually amazing. The show actually afforded sets for 5 different time periods, including the future. Oh my god. So Jonas woke up in 1921, and he was actually being smart about it. People thought he returned home from fighting World War I, and he told them he was stationed in the Eastern Front. Boy learned his history. At the end, he met young 1921 Noah, current time 1954 Noah, and then Adam, who is the leader of a secret time-traveling organization known as Sigmundus. There's a huge character reveal for who is Adam, and it is shocking. Jump over to 2020, we have 1987 Claudia trying to figure out future technology, and it's really interesting. At the same time, we have the new police guy Clausen acting really antagonistic towards everyone, which is very fishy. At the same time, future Jonas and his mom, Hannah Kanwald, Charlotte Doppler, and Peter Doppler revealed the secrets and info they've gathered. I really love scenes where multiple people reveal info to one another. At the same time, Martha, Magnus, Franziska, and Elizabeth went to the cave to investigate and saw someone there. We also have a small scene in 2052 where the girl who followed current Jonas into the black hole thing last episode got caught by Elizabeth Doppler. Cool scene as well. All in all, the shocking character reveals, the exploration of a new time period, Claudia's very curious first time travel experience, and people teaming up make this episode the most interesting so far. Then it's episode 5, Vom Suchen und Finden, or Lost and Found, and it's another fantastically fascinating episode. It really shocks me that this many characters know the truth this early on in the series. It really goes against the norms of sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, mystery TV shows. In 1921, young Jonas and Adam had a talk, and it was actually incredibly interesting to see them talk because they're very different yet very similar. In 1987, what happened to Mikkel was something that we've been waiting for since episode 1 of the series, extremely satisfying but also had a sour ending. In 2020, Bartosz came clean, and it's surprising that he would come clean this soon. We're not even at the end of season 2 and we've already arrived at this stage. This stage in the series is basically the equivalent to the second last episodes of each Stranger Things seasons, where every protagonist come together and piece the puzzle together. At the same time, we also have Clausen, the very suspicious police guy who became more and more intimidating as he was questioning Hannah, and then we have a huge shocking revelation regarding Noah's relationship with the family tree, and all in all, another great episode. Over to episode 6, Ein Unendlicher Kreis, or an endless cycle, and it's another episode that entirely focuses on one time period, and that is 2019. 2020 Jonas goes back to 2019 and tries to find that loophole that Adam had mentioned in 1921 and essentially try to stop the cycle that time has to repeat itself over and over and over again. You know, old Jonas helping young Jonas getting old, helping his young self, getting old, helping his young self. This cycle repeats over and over and over again, and there are many cycles as well. But this cycle is tragic. You don't want this to happen, and young Jonas is trying to stop that. This episode is the kind of episode that I've been anticipating for a very long time, because after we've learned this much information throughout the last 15 episodes, we kind of need to watch what exactly happened before episode 1 to see it come full circle. Right before Michael Kanwald, aka Mikkel Nielsen, aka Jonas' dad, had to kill himself, and what had led to it. We also have old Claudia showing up, which is slightly confusing because earlier in season 2, we have a scene regarding Claudia where she meets her end. And I believe it was 1954 after Claudia had a really emotional encounter with his dad Egon, but Egon was younger, so it's difficult to piece together what's the timeline in Claudia's POV, and I actually like that. For all I know, middle-aged Claudia in 1987 met her older self and visited H.G. Tannhaus, the clockmaker. She then visited 2020 briefly. Jump forward to old Claudia, who goes to 2019 to see Bartosz, goes to 1954 and give H.G. Tannhaus the blueprint to the time machine. Goes to 2019, but earlier, which is what happened in this episode, and then back in 1954. And then at the end, she goes back to 1954 to meet her dad. But she also mentioned a parallel timeline world in this episode, so maybe changing the future is possible if a parallel timeline is possible. No one knows. Then maybe the cycle can be broken. The montages in the beginning and the ending are great, but if there's one thing, that would be that I still don't know why Mikkel had to kill himself. What effects will take place? Young Mikkel still goes back to 1986 regardless of middle-aged Mikkel being alive or not, right? Then we have episode 7, the Weißer Teufel, or the White Devil, and it's also a really good episode. Quite a few things happened. In 1987, Claudia wanted to spend some time with her dad, Egon, before he dies, and there's a really emotional and shocking reveal that happened, and it's both tragic and eye-opening. It's meant to happen. It's basically destiny. Conveniently, 2020 Jonas also went to 1987 to look for Claudia at the very end. And a lot happened in 2020 as well. Now both the teens and the parents know about the whole time travel ordeal and finally decided to share about it. And it definitely sets up for a really dramatic finale. However, Hannah in 2020 did something weird again, and Hannah had always been a scheming, manipulative person, and it's difficult to know what's her motive, and it's part of what's interesting about this episode for me. I just hope that both 2020 Jonas and older Jonas can guide them to the right place. At last, we have episode 8, Enden und Anfänge, or Endings and Beginnings, which juxtaposes the episode 1 title, and holy fucking shit. This episode is actually insane. It's some of the best thing I've ever seen on TV for a very, very long time. My mind is actually blown. Pretty much everything other than what's going on with Noah happened in 2020, so let's talk about Noah first. Noah in 1921. There's a reveal regarding who's her wife, and this completely blew my mind. I was sort of expecting Noah to be a Tiedemann and somehow all three of the big families are connected, but no, this one is unexpected. And what happened to Noah is tragic as well. In 2020, oh my god, Clausen got the warrant to search the nuclear power plant, and that resulted in some insanity. Future Jonas tried to defy Adam and do his thing. Young Jonas and Claudia arrived in 2020. Adam then arrived in 2020. Elizabeth Doppler from the future also arrived in 2020. Everyone is in 2020. The entire plan is set in motion. It seems like everyone's doomed until the very last scene. Oh my god. The show just went from time is a flat circle to time is a sphere. We went from looking at things at the 4th dimension to now the 5th. This is the level we're at. I'm giving a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched Dark Season 2 for its entirety, go to the description tab or click on the timestamp and check out my score. First, according to young Jonas, he had already followed Claudia and learned everything Claudia knew up until that point for 1 year before reaching 1987 to bring middle-aged Claudia to 2020. Then, he goes to his own house and finds Mata. Adam shows up and killed Mata. What in the fuck? And then earlier, middle-aged Jonas tried to save Mata by locking her into a bunker because he knew Adam will kill her, but of course he failed and Mata escaped. But I guess at that point maybe middle-aged Jonas knew that Mata from another world will appear. Shouldn't Adam also know that then? Or is the multi-world theory not applicable to the whole, you can't change the future nor the past, destiny exists kind of rule? The revelation that Elizabeth is her own grandma is insane. I didn't see it coming, and the scene where Elizabeth from the future sees her own mom, Charlotte, in 2020 is really emotionally powerful. I also don't know why middle-aged Jonas didn't try to immediately get Magnus and Franziska and Bartosz to the bunker, despite Magnus and Franziska staying alive and working for Adam in the future. In 1921, their future. But I guess they all stayed alive. Bartosz also lived maybe and ended up getting killed by Noah himself in 1921. So they all became a part of the Travelers, I guess. Also, both young Jonas and middle-aged Jonas were trying to prevent the apocalypse and believe that the future can change. But they have failed. If the future can never be changed still, Adam should have experienced this. I'm not sure, but it gets me thinking. Hannah is still stuck in 1954, I guess, so maybe she's starting a new life there. Maybe she even becomes the mother of some important character. Katarina is also leaving. I don't know if it's to 1954 or 1987. Overall, Dark Season 2 is freaking fantastic. It starts off slow, but it definitely becomes interesting and thought-provoking as it goes on. It defies sci-fi mystery tropes, and it tries its best to go against our expectations, and it actually works. The casting of the characters are amazing, and the CGI is actually believable and doesn't look goofy at all. The complicated web of character relationships and time jumps actually made me think a lot, and I love thought-provoking stuff. I still understand the story at this point after episode 8, though I feel like if it gets any more complicated, I may begin to lose the hang of it. Yeah. I like that we see multiple characters die, but we see it as, oh, they have met their end in their point of view. It doesn't mean that in the future they can't show up, neither does it mean that it's the last of their characters to show up in the story itself. I mean, every character has got to end one way or another, a meaningless, unfortunate death or a peaceful death by old age, right? This story also constantly challenges us the idea if the future can change or not. Are we doomed? Is it destiny that Finden, or maybe the entire Germany, or maybe even the entire world had to become a nuclear wasteland? Or is it possible to actually change fate? Which is strange, because if you've already seen the future, how will the future suddenly change? We also get all sorts of bootstrap paradoxes here and there, whether ideas or actual objects. It's incredibly entertaining, and the last 6 episodes are basically banger after banger. The writers even managed to make a few characters likable, like Egon, his daughter Claudia, and Ulrich is still a character that I root for. My favorite is the finale, Enden und Anfänge, and my least favorite is episode 1, Anfänge und Enden. And I'm giving Dark Season 2 a 9 out of 10. So, have you watched Dark Season 2 from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. Yeah.